Okay, so yesterday the Gemara went off on a tangent because the sugya started because the Gemara said that all of the Mishnayos and Yuma are going according to Rav Shimon Isha Mitzvah. So once the Gemara saw this idea that we attribute a whole Masechta or a whole group of Mishnayos to one person, the Gemara brought another example of that, where the Gemara wanted to say that all of the Mishnayos and Midas are consistent with Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. And the discussion is that there was actually two discussions as to what brought Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov in. The first discussion was where was the location of the chamber that held the karbonis, and the Gemara ended up saying that the Mangamar holds that it's the northwestern chamber of the Beis Hamoiked that goes according to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. And the Gemara gets into a whole other question of when the Kohen when the Kohen chosen to process the Parah Aduma, he had to spritz the blood of the Parah Aduma on Har HaZeisim, but keneged the opening of the Heichel, keneged the Pesach Heichel. And the Gemara was trying to figure out, based on the topography and the elevations, how that would be possible. The Gemara said that the Gemara brings a Mishnah in Midas that says it would only be possible if the front entrance, which is the eastern entrance to Har Habayis, was lower than the standard wall size, so that the Kohen would be able to look over the wall and see the upper part of the doorway of the Heichel. And the reason why this is necessary is because if he would look in through the gate that's only 20 amas high, he would not be able to see the door of the Heichel because the elevation was much higher, and it was higher than the top of that gate. The Gemara says that's only possible according to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, who adds an extra amma of height because he includes an extra step up in the Azara that adds an amma of height. Because according to the understanding of the other Tanoim, the floor of the Har Habayis was 19 and a half amas below the floor of the Heichel. So you had a half a amma within your 20 amma height of the doorway. That in that top half amma, you would be able to see the very bottom of the door of the Heichel. But according to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, that half amma was also blocked because, in fact, there was a full amma of additional height, which means the floor of the Heichel would have been 20 and a half amas above the floor of Har Habayis. And because of that, there's no way you can look through the gate and see the door of Har Habayis. You had to look over. So that was another proof, in fact, that the Mishnah in Midas is following the Shita of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. We also had yesterday a possibility of the Mizbech obstructing the view because the Mizbech is centered right in front of the Heichel. Therefore, even if the height's not an issue and the elevation is not an issue, the Mizbech itself would obstruct the view. But the Gemara said that according to that Manama would be fine. But Rabbi Yehuda happens to hold that the Mizbech was not smack in the center. The Mizbech was towards the left, if I'm looking at the Heichel, or towards the south, and therefore the entire right side of the Heichel door would have been visible. With that, the Gemara wants to go back a little bit into the way this Shiloh started, which is the location of the four lishkas. So just to remind ourselves, I'm going to close the sharing of the Gemara, and I'm going to bring up another file just to refresh our memories as to what went on in the lishka. So let me see if I could share this. Once again, I want to thank Aldaf for their beautiful graphics. I'll just make it a little bit bigger. So what we had was these two squares here are representing the Lishkas Beis HaMoiked. The red dotted line represents the demarcation point between the area above, which is on Harabayis, out of the Azara, and the area below, which was in the Azara. And what we had was the first brisa that we quoted, which we want to say is Rabbi Ben Yaakov, held that the Lishkas Atloyim was in the northwest corner of the Lishkas Beis HaMoiked, which is surrounded here in the red circle. Because the brisa said that early in the morning, the Memuna sent to one of the Kohanim to go bring a tle or a carbon from the Lishkas Atloyim, and you should know it's in the northwestern corner. So he sent him to the northwestern corner. We had another brisa that said that the Lishkas Beis HaTloyim was in the southwest corner, and that was the steer that we had between Maseches Tamid and Maseches Midas. The Gemara as well lists off other chambers, like the Lechem Aponim chamber, where one brisa says it's in the northeast, and the other brisa said it was in the southeast. So there's a couple of discrepancies between the two brises that the Gemara is going to deal with today. But the first point that the Gemara is going to deal with today is the very first kasha. The brisa or the Mishnah in Talmud said that the Lishkas Atloyim was in the northwest corner, yet the other brisa said that it's in the southwest corner. So right now, the way we answered it was it's two different Tanoim talking about. The Mishnah in Talmud is Rabbi Ben Yaakov, and the Mishnah Midas is somebody else. That's
Yosy, just a point of clarification. I think the Gemara was saying that the Mishnah in Midos is Rabbi Ben Yaakov.
I'm sorry. So I mixed up the names. As I was saying it, I thought I was mixing it up. So thank you for clarifying that. So the Mishnah in Midas is going according to Rabbi Ben Yaakov, who holds it's in the southwest corner, and it's the Mishnah in Talmud. That's not like Rabbi Ben Yaakov. That's the northwest corner. Thank you very much for clarifying that. Okay, perfect. So the Gemara now is going to offer another option for Emperor the stira to say that in fact it's not a steer at all. That's what we're up to right now. Trying to understand why there's a discrepancy between the northwest and the southwest corner. So let me see if he has a picture of the Gemara's teretz. I don't see a picture of the Gemara's teretz yet. Oh, here's a picture of the Gemara's teretz. So let's get to the Gemara first. If we hear about the picture, we'll talk about the picture. So the Gemara suggests that the Lishkas Atloyim was not just a small square in the corner. It was a little bit removed from the corner, and there was a rectangular shaped lishka. Because of that, if someone was coming in the room from the south, it might look like it's at the north. So the Gemara is going to argue they really hold, both of them really hold that it was on the southwest corner, but it wasn't mamish in the corner like the other lishkas. It was a little bit removed from the corner, and it was a pretty long lishka. So if you're coming in from the south, it might look like it's at the northwest side, when really, when you're inside the room and you look around, you'll see it's at the southwest side. But it could have been confused, and it could have been described as at the northwest to someone who's coming in from this door. That's what the Gemara is going to answer. So let me stop the share on this. Let's go back to the Gemara. If you the Gemara back, Ada Bareja Yitzchak Omar, Hi Lishka Eksuyi Makse. This Lishkas Hatloyim wasn't just a square, and it wasn't all the way in the corner. It was a little bit drawn towards the north, and therefore, Uda Osam Etzafin, if you're coming from the north, Mischaza Lebedorim, it would look like it's on the south side because it extends a lot past the corner that you're closest to. Uda Osam Edorim, and if you're coming from the south, once again, it looks like it's moving further to the north. Mischaza Lebedorim. But where was it really? It was really at the southwest corner, but it always looked, being that it was a long lishka, it always looked like it was further away. So let's see what Rashi says.
I find that as a very weak answer. First of all, who cares what it looked like? It's what was it in actuality? And second of all, if you're coming from the north, there's no entrance from the north anyway, as far as is there?
No, there wasn't. Yeah, you were able to enter the Azara by walking through the Lishka space of Micah.
So then for sure, the first room is not the Lishka that we're talking about. If you're entering,
I'm happy that you brought it up, because what's happening over here? There's a huddle in the Azara. There's a huddle in the Azara by the Kaihanim. And the Mamuna said, go get the Tleh. So they were in the Azara when the Mamuna told them to go get the Tleh. So the shortest route would be to go through the south entrance from the Azara into the Lishka space of Micah. And what was the Lashon of the Mamuna? The Lashon of the Mamuna wasn't, he was giving directions. I don't think he was saying specifically where the Lishka is. He was just telling the fellow where to go. So he said, Amal Mamuna Tzuve Diu Tle, Mi Lishkas Beis Atlayim, so maybe instead of touching it like we touched it, that the Lishka is in the northwest corner, maybe what the Kohen was, or what the Mamuna was saying is, when you go into the Lishka of Semaikid, look towards the northwest and you'll see it. Instead of saying walk in the door and make an immediate left, look forward to the left, because the Lishka isn't right up against the south wall. The Lishka starts a couple of feet from the south wall, so look towards your northwest, and that's how you'll find the base of Micah. So it could be he was more instructing the Kohen where to look than giving the exact location of where the Lishka was.
That's a little better. Okay.
Well, the question is, did the Kohen find a claim? If he found them, then the directions were good. So let's see what Rashi says. It was actually visible from both sides. Sharuchahi was long, so it was more of a rectangular shape. It was really, one end was really closer. I'm sorry, it was right up against the west side. It was all the way on the west wall of the Lishkas Pesamoikid. But umarechas l'tzatzafan v'darim, it extended towards the north and towards the south at Karvel Miktoy Shemikanamikan. So it was a rectangular chamber that was right up against the west wall, but it didn't come all the way up to the north wall, nor did it come all the way up to the west wall. And that's another reason, I'm happy Rashi points out, that's another reason maybe for David Zolti's Kasha, is that it could not have said that it's in any corner. In any corner that it would have stated it would technically be inaccurate, because it wasn't in a corner. It was along the west side of the Lishka, but it didn't extend fully to the north, nor did it extend fully to the south. So it was sort of neither north nor south. So the way one would describe its location would depend on what direction someone was approaching it from. So you're coming from the north entrance, it would look like it's extending more to the south. So the question is, where was it actually? Where was it actually? Was it exactly centered? The svara is that it was actually closer to the south side. Even though when you came in from the south entrance, it looked like it was to the north, but if you actually measured it out, you'll find that it was closer to the south wall than it was to the north wall. Which would mean that both Mishnayos are moida that it's on the south side. So no one really said that it's on the north side. The north side was merely giving directions. But really the Lishka was at the south side, which means it was more in the Azara. Ella the Naked Sidra, Midarim Lutzafin, let's see the hay. El the Naked Sidra, the Asi Midarim Lutzafin, the Mishnah that describes the directions that are going to get there is referencing someone who's actually coming in from the Azara, coming in from the south, heading north. Therefore, it would look to him like this Lishka was on the left side. So now the Gemara says, we said mistaber de ma'arabas d'roi mishaber. It's mistaber to say that in fact it was really closest to the southwest corner. Why is that? And here it becomes a little bit complicated, but we'll see the Gemara and we'll use the pictures and then it'll become clear. Mimai. If you remember, there was also a stira in the location of the lechem apanim. So I want to go back to the brisa and see what the situation with the lechem aponim is, so we can get an appreciation of what the problem was with the lechem aponim. So let's go back to the Brisa or the Mishnah on Tesvav Amud Beis. It's not awesome. Amalam Amamuna Tzuve Viu Tla Milishkus Beis Atlayim. While Milishkus Beis Atlayim Hoisa B'Mitzoyet Tzafonis Marabis, it was on the northwest corner, which now the Gemara is saying doesn't really mean that. We'll see why. But Arba Lishkus Hoyisham. The Mishnah lists off there are 4 lishkus. So I bring that another picture up right now. I'm going to imagine it as like we saw. We have the big square, which is a lishkus Beis Hamoed, and then there's 4 squares. Top left would be northwest, bottom left would be southwest, top right would be northeast, and bottom right would be southeast. That's what I'm imagining. So let's have a look. And we're also assuming that normally when we talk about these things, we go in the counterclockwise direction, like we've been discussing until now. So let's lishkas atloim, arba lishkas hayusham, achas lishkas atloim, which we're now placing at the northwest, so top left. The achas lishkas achesamais. Then we're going to go to the bottom left, which is going to be the southwest, which is the lishkas achesamais. Then we're going to go to the southeast, which is the right, the bottom right, which is lishkas beis hamoed. And then we're going to go to top right, which is northeast, biachas lishka, so oisamas lechem upon it. So this brisa, the brisa in, I believe this is in Midas, right? This brisa is in Midas, is placing it, no, I'm sorry, it's in Tobit. This is in Tobit. This brisa is placing the lechem upon him at the top right, which is the northeast. Okay, now let's look at the next brisa. Arba lishkas hoy leves hamoed, kiktani is a psuchas atrakim. Shtayim v'kodesh v'shtayim v'chol. Rashi v'spas ma'avil mekodesh v'chol. U'mahoy mishamshes. Okay. My Ravas derimis hoyelishkas fly carbon. That was the very first stira that we just resolved, and that was going to be the southwest. So we're also going to move it. This is also going in a counterclockwise motion. So now we're going to go to the bottom right, which is the southeast. That was the lishka of the lechem aponim. So you see a stira, because this brisa says the lechem aponim was bottom right, and the last brisa, according to our calculations, makes it top right. So is it northeast or is it southeast? The lishka where the lechem haponim was prepared. That is the problem that the Gemara is dealing with right now. So let's go back to the Gemara. You have to say that in actuality, the lishkas beis hatloyim was southwest. Why? Mimai midiraminan lechem haponim. We also had a kasha that there's a contradiction in the placement of the lishka of the lechem haponim. Is it southeast or is it northeast? Umishaninan, and the Gemara answered this kasha. And this is how the Gemara answered the kasha. Amar Afuna Breda Bishua, Marka Choshev Derech Yamin. One is counting clockwise. We said, I'm sorry, Yamin means counterclockwise. One is going in a counterclockwise route, like we've discussed. Umarka Choshev Derech Smile. And the other brisa is looking at a clockwise motion. So let's see how the chips fall if we're looking at a counterclockwise motion. So if you go back to the brises, we don't have the option of changing the direction of the brise and midos, because the brise and midos takes you step by step and tells you where everything is. The brise and midos, I'm at the wrong daf, I think. I have to go one more back. No, I have to go one more forward. Over here we are. The brisa in midos actually tells you which direction it's heading in. Right? It starts at southwest and it goes to southeast. So clearly it's going in a counterclockwise motion. But the Gemara wants to argue that maybe the first brisa is in a clockwise motion. So let's have a look. Let's have a look and see what would happen if we went in a clockwise motion. So the first lishka we're talking about being the northwest, if in fact it is the northwest. So if it's in the northwest, so northwest would be lishkas atloim. Now we're going to go clockwise. V'achas lishkas achaysamais. So lishkas achaysamais is now northeast because we're going clockwise. The achas lishkas beis hamoed is now southeast. The achas lishkas shoysim b'lechem aponim, which is southwest. It still doesn't match because now going clockwise, the lishka of the lechem aponim will be southwest, which is the bottom left. Yet the Brisa specifically says there that the lechem aponim is going to be northeast. So how does changing the direction from clockwise to counterclockwise help? It doesn't help at all. But that's if you place the lishkas hatloyim as the northwest. But if you place the lishkas hatloyim as the southwest, then everything would work out perfectly. Because let's have a look. Let's do this again. Lishkas hatloyim, we're going to say, is going to be southwest. Okay? Lishkas hachasamis, moving in a clockwise motion, will be northwest. Lishkas Beis HaMoiked will be, again in a clockwise motion, will be northeast. And the Achas Lishkas Sha'osim B'Lechem Aponim is going to be southeast. So that didn't work out so well like I thought it would. So we'll have to see the Gemara inside, and then we'll use the pictures, because I myself, I'm getting a little bit confused. So let's see what the Gemara says. I'm going to Beshua. Mark Chashav Derech Yemina, Mark Chashav Derech Shmona. So Zok the Gemara. If you're going to argue that the Lishkas HaTloim was at the southwest corner, that would solve the problem of Lechem Aponim. And Rashi says, the Titana, who identified the Lishkas HaTloim as the northwest, which would be the top left corner, if you're going to say that Moidehu, Latzad Ma'arovas, the Roivas have it today, if you're going to say that you place that Lishka not at the northwest corner, but at the southwest corner, which would be the bottom left of the square, which is right over here, right? Then the reason why it's called north is because Elalafi Maris Einoi, Shana Mishnasa, our Mishnah used the word north, but it doesn't really mean north, because it doesn't mean Mischazalim Mitzafan, but and then when you're counting clockwise, you're counting from the southwest corner, from the bottom left. Now it'll make perfect sense why it's not a stira. And Rashi goes through the cheshbon. Lios b'dreimis mizrachos. The lechem aponim will be on the southeast corner. So I made the cheshbon right. Ketzad. Lishkas atloyim would be dreimis maravos, which would be the southwest, which is the bottom left. Lishkas hachesamais, he oslos derech smoil. If you're going to go clockwise, would be my ravis tzefonis. So Lishkas hachesamais is the top left. Lishkas Beis HaMoiked is going to be further clockwise, which will be top right, tzefonis my ravis. And Lishkas lechem aponim would be mizrachas dreimis, would be the southeast corner. So that would work out well. Why? Because what does the other brisa say? The other brisa says, I'm sorry. Droimis mizrachas he lishkish shoyashem b'lechem aponim. I read the brisa wrong. I read the Mishnah wrong. So in fact, both brisas would agree that the lishka of the lechem aponim was at the bottom right, which is the southeast. If you're going to say that the lishkas atloyim was in fact the northwest, like the brisa, like the Mishnah seems to say before we answered it, well then soif my terutzo the lechem aponim. How would it help? Because if you're going, even if you're going in a clockwise motion, but if you're starting from the northeast, you're still going to have the same problem. So let's just look at the picture, because I believe it's somewhat confusing. And with the picture, it'll become much easier. Okay, so let's scroll down a little bit to where he brings us to the rotation. Okay, so here we go. Let me just make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so here what we have. So in Maseches Tamid, if you're talking counterclockwise in both cases, so the Lishkas Atloim, if the Lishkas Atloim is the northwest, which is how we all started, then the Lishkas HaChesamos would end up being the southwest. The Lishkas Beis HaMoiked would be the southeast, and the Lishkas of the Lechem Aponim would be northeast. And that was the problem, because the Mishnah in Midos said that it was in the southeast. And they placed the Lishkas Atloim at the southwest, which is the bottom left. going counterclockwise, the lishkas of the lechem aponim would be southeast. Then comes the lishkas of chasamis. Then comes the lishkas of beis hamoyed. So this is the approach. If both the lishkas atloyim is placed at the northwest, like we originally thought, and that the direction of travel is counterclockwise, which we assume. But we're going to say now that the direction of travel will be clockwise, and if it's clockwise, and we move this lishkas atloyim down here, because we say it was really in the Durham, then everything will line up perfectly that the lishkas ois and lechem aponim should be southeast. And here is how he arranges it. Okay, so here we go. Now we're going clockwise. So if the lishkas atloyim is placed at the southwest, which is what the Gemara wants to say now, and we're going clockwise, then you have the lishkas atloyim, the lishkas hachesamos, the lishkas beis hamoyed, and the lishkas ois and lechem aponim will land perfectly at the southeast, which is the bottom right. If we look at the Maseches Amidus, where it's going counterclockwise, it works out perfectly the same way. Because we started off with the lishkas atloyim, which everybody agrees is now southwest, because that's how we answer the kasha. And in a counterclockwise motion, the southeast will also be lishkas ois and lechem aponim, and this way there's no steer at all between the Mishnah Maseches Tamid and the Mishnah Maseches Midos. The way we resolve the questions is the lishkas atloyim. We resolve that the Mishnah Tamid never really meant to place the lishka at the northeast corner. It really meant at the northwest corner. It really meant the southwest corner, and it only calls it northwest because that's how it looks like when you walk in through the south entrance. You see this lishka over here. It looks like it's further back. So that's the first question that we resolve. The second question that we resolve is that if you count in the counterclockwise motion in Midos, but a clockwise motion in Talmud, it will end up putting the lishkas ois lechem aponim in the same place, which will be the southeast, which will be the one on the right, closest to you when you come in from the Azar. That takes care of our Gemara. So let's go back to the Gemara. Correct the Gemara. I thought you said that we always have to go counterclockwise. Correct the Gemara, but Amar Mar said, Kol pinoi sha'ata poina. Anytime you change a direction, lo yu el lechimin, lemizrach, which means you should always be going counterclockwise. So why would you suggest that the Mishnah in Talmud is going clockwise when you always go counterclockwise? Zok the Gemara, this hakpada to go counterclockwise, hanamili be'avoida. That's when you're doing avoida, you should do things in a counterclockwise motion, like when you're going around the mizbeach to put dam on the mizbeach. Abul hacha we were just giving you information and locations. There's nothing wrong with going clockwise. Okay, Gavaltic. So that takes care of the sugya. Now we're going to start a new sugya, a much easier sugya. We're going to talk about the privilege of being a kohen gadol. Zok the Heilig Gemara. We have a couple of extra minutes. I wouldn't mind looking at this Tosfos. It's a very interesting Tosfos. But we'll first let's finish the Gemara so we have it in the bag. Then if we have time, we'll squeeze in the Tosfos. Zok the Gemara. Shekoyin gadol makriv chelik b'rosh v'noitel chelik b'rosh. We said every day of the year the kohen gadol has a right to take over any avoda. He also has a right to take any proceeds, any meats. He has a right to seize that first. Zok the Gemara. Tanu Rabban. Ketzad makriv chelik b'rosh. What does it mean? How would it manifest itself that he could take any avoda to do as he pleases? Omar, he says, there could be a kohen of the mishmar that's about to be makriv the oila, and you can say, buddy, stand aside, I got this one. Or min chazu ani makriv. So that's pretty straightforward. But ketzad noitel chelik b'rosh, how would it work that he can get a chelik of the meat first? How would that manifest itself? Oimer, if someone's bringing a personal carbon chatas and there's a kohen on the job, you could say chatazu on the oichel. That steak, you wanted it? I said, sorry, I'm going to have it for lunch. Or ashum's on the oichel. The noitel. So these are regular korbanos that individuals bring, and the kohanim are being makir. But here we're talking about the lechem. Here we're talking about the shtei lechem. The noitel chala mishtei chalos. There were the shtei lechem were brought. Shavuos is coming up. There were two breads brought that were then distributed to the Kohanim. So he could take one of the two. He could take one full challah from the two challahs. Or arba oichamosh mimayis lechem apanim. Now we know on the lechem apanim there were 12 breads. There were 6 on each stack, and he can take 4 or 5. Which the Gemara is going to want to know, where do these numbers come from? Rabbi Omer la'olam chamesh. She always gets 5. You can always take 5, which means you can take close to a half. Shenemer v'hoysel la'aron ulevanov. And since the Torah says la'aron ulevanov, it teaches us that he can't get it all. It's mechsel la'aron umechsel levanov. So Rashi says, that pasuk is by the lechem apanim. This is mechsel la'aron. The alpha p shem shnei maser. There's 12, so half of 12 would be 6, not 5 and not 4. Yesh ben shtei chalos she'enim eschalkos kidim afarish v'aser. The Gemara is going to now explain that 2 out of these 12 chalos were not part of the cheshbon, and that's why when the kohen got his half, he didn't get 6, because 2 are out of the question. The sum total that we're going to select from is either 10, which would net 5 as half, or 8, which would net 4 as half. So
this was only on Shabbos that he could do that. Okay.
Correct.
Clear on that.
You could only get shishi on Shabbos. You can't get it on the Monday or a Thursday. It's Gemara. Hagufa kasha. This brisa is a stira whenever. Amrit noitel chala achas mishtei chalas. You say he can have one of 2 chalas, which means exactly half. Mani Rebbe, the Amar Pal V'Shakol. It's Rebbe Shita who holds he gets exactly half, not a little bit less than half. Okay, so this brisa is going according to Rebbe, who holds he gets exactly half. Ema mitziyasa. Let's have a look at the middle case of the brisa. Arba oichomesh mimayis lechem aponim. Well, that's less than half. So it's asin l'rabbanim. Rashi says, the Amar lo shakol palga. The Rabbanan says, the Amar lo shakol palga. He shakol palga, but mechamesh lo shakol. He should have at least 5, even if 2 don't count. He should have 5. How would you ever able to justify 4 if, according to Rebbe, he has to have a full half? Ema Seifa. Let's learn the third case of the same brisa. Rebbe Omer lo'ilam chamesh, which is clearly Rebbe. So are you suggesting that the ratio of a Seifa Rebbe mutziyasa rabbanon? The first and the last case of the brisa, where the kohen gets exactly half, is following the Rebbe. The middle case, where it says 4 or 5, is not going according to Rebbe, which is not mistaber to say. Amar Abaye, no, ratio mutziyasa rabbanon. Both the ratio and the middle case of the rabbanon, that you get less than half. If you get less than half, why by the shtei alechem does the kohen gadol get 1 full bread? That's a complete half. You should make him take a little bit less than half. Really, he should get less than a full challah by the shtei alechem. But if you had an odd number, you could take less than that by taking a challah. Here, in order for him to take less than that, you're going to end up having to break up the bread. It's not ba'kovedik to give the kohen gadol a broken piece of bread. So really, you'd want to give him less than half, but here we have to give him half because we don't have any other way of doing it. Zok Rashi, you take less than half. Why did you get the full bread, which is a full half? It's not less than half. It's not appropriate to break the bread and give only a broken piece of bread to the kohen gadol. So Zok to Gemara, the middle we're saying is also going according to the Rabbanim. So why sometimes by the lechem aponim you take 4 and sometimes take 5? Zok to Gemara, l'Rabbanim the Amri nichnas noitel sheish the yoyte noitel sheish was chayagavas losois loy or loy shokel loy shokel. So let's think about this. There was a shita that held that on Shabbos was the changing of the guards. Who opened up the gates? Who opened up the doors in the morning? The mishmar that's going to leave today. They didn't finish the job because they leave before the end of the day and they don't close the doors, which means they're expecting the incoming mishmar to do their work for them. Well, there's a charge for that. And therefore, the second group of Kohanim might be entitled to 2 chalas. There is such a shita. The Rabbanan don't hold to that. The Rabbanan hold that the fact that the incoming group closes the doors that the outgoing group opened, that doesn't get them any type of schar. So therefore, all 12 of the lechem aponim are in play. So Zok the Gemara, l'Rabbanan da'amri nichnas noitel sheish v'yoytzi noitel sheish. There's nothing that's removed from the total. So there's 12 in play, and each mishmar gets 6 of the 12 chalas lechem aponim. Uschar gofas blasois, and there is nothing that's removed from the total. Lo shokol. So mishtei meshi boyim lifted. The Kohen Gadol is now taking his part of the 12 breads. Botzer chadami palga. What would be full half? A full half of the 12 breads would be 6. But the Rabbanan hold, unlike Rebbe, that you don't take a full half, you take a little bit less than half. So what's 1 less than half? What's 1 less than 6? 5. Therefore, boyim miflik botzer chadami palga chamesh shakel. He'll take 5. But Rabbi Yehuda, the Omer Nichnas Noitel Sheva, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, who holds the incoming Mishmar, do get an extra payment because they're closing the doors that the outgoing Mishmar opened in the morning, and therefore Nichnas Noitel Sheva, they take 7. Shtayim Bischar Hagofes Losses, 2 aren't even in play. That's to pay them for closing the doors, and they split the remaining 10. So the nichnas get 10, and the yoyte get. I'm sorry, the nichnas get 5, and the yoyte get 5. The yoyte noitel chamesh. So therefore, my eser boy miflik. Now the Kohen Gadol is taking his half, a little bit less than half of 10. But zechada mi palga v'shakal arba. So if he's taking a little bit less than half of 10, which means he would get 4. So therefore, the tziyasa of the brisa that says that by the lechem aponim, the Kohen Gadol gets either 5 breads or 4 breads is totally in a different machlokes between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda. If you hold that that all 12 breads are in play and nothing is skimmed off the top and it's split evenly 6 for the incoming mishmar and 6 for the outgoing mishmar, then the Kohen Gadol is entitled to a little bit less than half. If half is 6, a little bit less than that is 5, and that explains why sometimes the Kohen Gadol gets 5. But if you hold like the Rabbanan that the whole pool is only 10 because 2 are removed to pay the incoming mishmar, then the whole pool is 10. If the whole pool is 10, then half of that is 5. The Kohen Gadol gets a little bit less than half, he would get 4. So that explains the middle case of the brisa, why it's 4 or 5. Let's see Rashi. Zok Rashi. L'Rabbanan, the pligi alad Rabbi Yehuda, Perka Chalil. So this machlokes as to whether or not 2 of the lechem aponim are skimmed off the top to give as payment to the incoming mishmar, this machlokes is in Sukkah Perka Chalil. But Amri mishmar yoytze noitel sheish u'mishmar nichnas yoytze sheish chalos. No one gets paid for any of their work, and everybody gets 6 chalos. The incoming mishmar doesn't get a bonus of 2 because of payment for closing the doors. Nimzi kulon boys from machlokes. All 12 are in the pool that we're going to split. The Kohen Gadol cholik imshten. The Kohen Gadol gets to take a little bit less of half from both the incoming mishmar as well as the outgoing mishmar. Mishtei masher by miflik, and the pool from where he's taking is a little bit less than half. Is a pool of 12 breads. Umechta shalom einenoitel. He doesn't take a complete half. But zechadami palga chamesh shokel. It works out that he gets 5 chalos. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Nichnas Noitel Shtayim Beloy Machlokes. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that 2 are taken right off the top. Bischar Shu Magif L'Motzoi Shabbos the Losai Sa'azara V'Chel V'Heichel V'Lishgais. All of these doors, the incoming mishmar have to close. Shepas Cheshachas Mishmar Sheyotzlai. Who opened up all these gates? The mishmar that left. So since they're finishing the job of the mishmar that left, they're paid with 2 chalas that they get that's not even in the cheshbon, and then it's me'eser by miflid. What is actually being distributed? 10 chalas she'ein hashtayim boys from machlokes, because 2 go out of the pool to pay these people. Chayanim are coming in. Kischarim because it's their schar. So then botzer chadami palga the eser. What would be 1 less than half of 10? So half of 10 is 5, and 1 less would be 4 for shokal arba. So that's how Abaye wants to learn this brisa. Zok to Gemara, Rav argues.
I think it's a mistake to say that they get paid for closing the doors. Because if you say
Next week,
that's right, next week it all evens out anyway. They don't get anything extra.
that's what the Rabbanan hold. The Rabbanan hold that it all evens out anyway. But either way, it evens out because the same way they're getting their two challahs this week, the people that took over from got it last week. So everything
Right.
evens out regardless.
That's right.
Everything's always even out. It's
Right.
like minimum wage. You could raise the minimum wage, but then the price of everything goes up. You don't get any further ahead.
Okay.
Okay, Rava Amar. Rava had a different approach. He wanted to say Kula Rebbehi. The entire brisa, all three cases in the brisa are following the sheet of Rebbe, where the Kohen Gadol doesn't get less than half; he gets a full half. The Sover like Rabbi Yehuda, and he also holds like Rabbi Yehuda that the lechem upon you take two off the top to pay the incoming mishmor, and there's only 10 in the pool to be split. So let's just have a look at the brisa once again. Let's look at the first case, the second case. Let's see how the cases are. So the ster lechem is obvious. It's going according to Rebbe. He gets exactly half. So that's very, very simple. That's very simple. The next case was the lechem upon where it says arba or chamesh. So if it's going according to Rebbe and it's going according to Rabbi Yehuda, chamesh makes perfect sense. He gets half of the remaining 10 challahs. But we'll need an explanation as to what is this arba about. So Zog to Gemara, why would there ever a reason to give arba? Well, my arba, chamesh by mishkol. Half of 10 is 5. Kasha, ha deika mishmar hamasakiv, ha deleka mishmar hamasakiv. So let me ask you a question. What would happen on Yom Tov? On Yom Tov, all of the kohanim that come to be Oila Regel, everyone does Avodah. It's not split up by families, right? So what happens the Shabbos that falls out on Yom Tov? The Shabbos that falls out on Yom Tov, the Mishmar in charge doesn't get the Challah, the Mishmar coming, the Mishmar leaving. All of the kohanim get the share in the Challah because everyone's there. But what happens if the last day of Yom Tov is a Friday? So all the Kohanim that came for Yom Tov, they have no choice. They have to stay because they can't travel on Shabbos. Or what if Erev Yom Tov is a Shabbos, like we had by Pesach this year? The Kohanim have to come before Shabbos. So is that Shabbos given over to the Mishmar because it's not part of Yom Tov, or is that Shabbos shared by everybody? So that the Rashi tells us that Shabbos is also shared by everybody. So therefore the Kohanim and the Mishmar don't get their chayla. But what happens if there's one day between Shabbos and Yom Tov? For instance, what if the first day of Yom Tov was on a Monday? Which means a lot of Kohanim aren't going to want to arrive to Yerushalayim at the last minute on Sunday, so they'll already come before Shabbos. So they're here for a decent reason, but Lamaisa, it's not part of the Yom Tov. Or what if the last day of Yom Tov is Thursday and Isra Chag is Friday, and Kohanim don't want to travel on Friday? So what do? They stay over the Shabbos. So what is the status of that Shabbos? Who gets the lechem upon? So let's see what Rashi says. Rashi says, sometimes Yom Tov falls out of the Monday. And people don't want to arrive on Sunday, so they'll come and arrive on Friday. So kol ha-mishmar is boys beregel, because all of the mishmars normally are there for Yom Tov. Erev Shabbos. Sometimes Friday is the day after Yom Tov, is Isra Chag. And once again, the Mishmar is Halachas L'm coming by Erev Shabbos. Most people will leave on Friday and get home. But there might be a Mishmar that says, we don't want to travel on Friday. We'll wait till Motzei Shabbos to go home. With Nava Masech Sukkah, Shabbos Shabbos Regel, the Shabbos that was in Yom Tov, how you call him Mishmar is Shabbos Bechiluk Lechem Apanim. There was no exclusivity. Everybody had an equal share. The Chen Yom Tov Asamach L'Shabbos Beimi L'Faneh. If Shabbos was Erev Yom Tov, Shein Yechayim Loshev v'Shabbos L'm Kaiman. I'm sorry. If Shabbos was the day after Yom Tov, where people can't travel home on Shabbos, or Beinu Lachareh, if Shabbos is Erev Yom Tov, Shal Kol Chayin Makdim and Lovim Erev Shabbos, there's no other way. All the Kohanim have to come from Erev Shabbos. Once again, it was treated like it was on Yom Tov itself. But you call it Mishmar Shabbos B'Chiluk Lechem Apanim. Shori Al Kol Chayin Shoy. They have no choice. They have to wait there to wait till Shabbos passes before they can leave, or they have to come earlier because they can't travel on Shabbos. But where there's a difference is Chol Yom Echad Lahavsek B'Intayim Oim L'Faneh Going to Kala Moed b'Chamishi b'Shabbos. If the last day of Yom Tov is Thursday, so you only have a Friday in between. If the first day of Yom Tov is Monday, and now Sunday is Erev Yom Tov, and in Shabbos. Here, the Kohen Mishnah could say you didn't have to come before Shabbos. You could have come on Sunday. So you don't get to share equally in the Lechem Apanim with us because you didn't need to be here. So, but you do give him something. So, however many Mishmers decide to stay because they don't want to travel on Erev Shabbos, they will take 2 chalas, they skim 2 chalas off the top that they split amongst them. Vashar, and the remaining 10, mischalkus lemishkar hayoytzev anichnas. Shizman hakavul lois Shabbos. So that's why we were looking for, if we hold like Rabbi Yehuda, that the 2 from the 12 are not taken away to pay the incoming mishmar, but there is a time where you take them away, and that is if there's a mishmar. So like Rabbi Yehuda, but lamai arba hachamish by the mishkal you should take 5. I'm sorry. So Rabbi Yehuda holds you take away 2. Rabbi Yehuda holds you take away 2 to pay the mishmar hanichnas. So the pool is 10. So how do you ever have the pool being 8 that the Kohen Gadol will only take 4? On it, if it happens to be a Shabbos where there's an extra mishmar staying here, so now the pool is only 8 because 2 goes to pay the mishmar nichnas to close the door, and 2 goes to be distributed evenly to all those kanim who remain, and now there's only 8 left to accommodate the mishmar hayotze and the mishmar nichnas. Out of 8, the kohen according to Rebbe gets half, and therefore he takes 4. Ika mishmar misakev mishmoyne boile miflik. There's only a pool of 8 to take from, and therefore v'shakal arba the kohen gadol will take 4. Yileka mishmar misakev, if it's a regular Shabbos, then only 2 are removed to pay the mishmar nichnas for closing the doors. So therefore, the pool to select from is 10. So the Gemara says everything's perfect. The problem is the last line of the mission of the Brisa. The last line was Rebbe Omer la'olam chomesh. What does that mean? Isn't the Rebbe talking up until now as well? Correct the Gemara. Ihachi my Rebbe Omer la'olam chomesh. Rebbe already explained this. Sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 4, depending on if there's a mishmar. There's a mishmar ma'akim. So the last line in the Brisa doesn't make sense. The last line I cannot explain why Rebbe added in L'olam Chomesh. Rebbe still wants to learn that the whole Brisa is following the sheet of Rebbe that the Kohen Gadol gets exactly half. Okay, I guess we can stop here.
Shkech.